If someone had said back in 1979 that that child wouldn't live even a full day, everyone would have believed it. If someone had said that girl would never smile, never love, never be loved, no one would have doubted it. What no one could imagine was that that birth, silent and frightening, would forever change the hearts of everyone who crossed her path. On that cold morning in 1979, the hospital seemed quieter than usual. The corridor lights flickered faintly. The strong smell of alcohol mixed with despair filled the air. Inside the delivery room, a young white woman with pale skin and light eyes full of fear gripped the sheets tightly as she felt life tearing through her body. It was her first child. Throughout the pregnancy, the exams had been simple. Nothing indicating any serious problems. No doctor had prepared her for what was about to happen. When the cry echoed, it was weak, different, a cry that didn't fill the room with joy, but with confusion. The nurse froze for a few seconds. The doctor looked away. The clock kept ticking, indifferent to the silent tragedy that had just been born. The girl was born without arms and legs. The silence fell heavily, like a sentence. The mother tried to stand, tried to see her daughter's face, but no one would let her. The trembling hands of the professionals concealed something they didn't know how to explain until someone with a choked voice uttered the phrase, "No mother should ever have to hear. Your daughter was born with an extremely rare condition. Too rare to have answers, too rare to have promises, too rare to have hope." When they finally placed the baby near her, the mother felt her heart break into 1,000 pieces. The little girl was small, fragile, wrapped in cloths larger than her own body. Where her little arms should have been, there were only soft ends. Where her little legs should have been, there was nothing. But what shocked the woman most was not the absence of limbs. It was her eyes. Clear, almost blue eyes, which opened slowly and seemed to search for something in the world. They seemed to be looking for love. The mother cried as she had never cried before. She cried from fear, from guilt, from pain, from anger. Silently she asked what she had done wrong. She asked God, why her? Why that child? Why in that way? The father standing in a corner of the room couldn't approach. The shock was too great. He left, pressed his forehead against the cold wall of the hallway, and slid to the floor, sobbing like a lost boy. In the following days, the news spread quickly. Doctors went in and out of the room with serious looks. Some spoke of a short life. Others spoke of constant suffering. Still others, more cruel, spoke of institutions, of abandonment, of the impossibility of a dignified life. She didn't have a name yet. The mother avoided giving a name as if that would make everything more real, as if naming meant accepting. At night, alone in the room, she watched her daughter sleeping silently, breathing with difficulty, and felt a fear that couldn't be contained in her chest. Fear of the future, fear of judgment, fear of not being strong enough. In 1979, the world was not kind to those who were different. There were no social media platforms to share stories of overcoming adversity. There were no inclusion campaigns. There was no accessibility. There were only stares, whispers, and doors closing. Some visitors entered the room out of curiosity. They'd glance quickly and leave without saying anything. Others would say things that hurt more than help. God knows what he's doing. Maybe it's better this way. You're still young. You can try again. Each word was a knife. But there was something about that baby that no one could explain. Even fragile, even limited by her own body, she reacted to her mother's touch. When her mother cried, the girl made a soft sound, almost as if trying to answer. When her mother spoke, she calmed down. It was as if that child was saying without words, "I'm here. Don't give up on me." On the third night in the hospital, the mother couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, listening to the distant beeping of other machines until she felt something change inside her. She approached the crib, gently touched her daughter's face, and for the first time spoke aloud, "You will live in your own way. But you will live." At that moment, she decided that the world could be cruel. But her daughter wouldn't grow up without love, even without knowing how, even without answers, even with fear. She gave the girl a name that morning, a simple name, but full of meaning for her. A name that symbolized light in the midst of darkness. And as she whispered that name, tears fell onto the small blanket of the crib. The doctors remained skeptical. They said the first few months would be crucial, that infections could arise, that the body might not hold up, that perhaps it was better not to get your hopes up. But every time someone said that the girl wouldn't survive, the mother felt something grow stronger inside her. A raw, almost savage instinct, a love that needed no explanation. When they were finally discharged, their departure from the hospital was marked by long stares. Some people looked away, others observed with pity. The mother held her daughter with extreme care, as if she were protecting the most precious thing in the world. And it was outside. The cold wind touched the baby's face. Her bright eyes opened once more, reflecting the daylight. No one there could imagine that this child, considered impossible, was only beginning a journey that would make many cry, question, and learn the true meaning of strength. That was just the first battle. This girl's story didn't begin with victory. It began with rejection, fear, and silence. But it also began with a promise made in the heart of a mother who refused to give up. And what would come next would test not only that family, but everyone who crossed paths with this child who was born without arms and legs, but with a heart capable of changing destinies. The first few months at home were harder than anything that mother could have imagined. The world outside the hospital had no caring nurses or doctors nearby. It was filled with silence, long nights, and unanswered questions. Every breath the baby took was watched as if it were her last. Every cry made the mother's heart race. The girl needed constant care. Feeding her required patience, adaptation, and creativity. There were no manuals on how to raise a child without arms and legs. In 1979, everything was trial and error. Many times the mother would cry alone in the bathroom so that her daughter wouldn't sense her insecurity. Then she would wipe her face, take a deep breath, and return smiling. The father was slow to become emotionally close. He fulfilled his obligations, worked outside the home, brought money home, but there was an invisible distance between him and his daughter. It wasn't a lack of love. It was fear. Fear of becoming attached and losing her. Fear of not being able to bear the pain. At night, he watched the girl sleep and wondered if he was prepared for that kind of fatherhood. The neighbors soon found out. Some appeared with curiosity disguised as concern. Others avoided the subject. There were those who crossed the street to avoid looking. There were those who said that child was a punishment. Each comment pierced the mother like a punch, but she remained firm. In silence, she promised to protect her daughter from the world, even knowing that this would be impossible forever. When the girl turned 6 months old, the doctors confirmed what they had already feared. She would never have limbs. There were no surgeries that could solve the problem. There were no miracle treatments. The most they could do was help with the development of her trunk, posture, and breathing. The future would be made of adaptations, limitations, and constant challenges. The mother listened to everything without crying. She saved her tears for later. When she got home, she held her daughter close to her chest and let the tears flow. She cried for the future that wouldn't be. She cried for the dreams that would need to be reinvented. She cried from exhaustion. But amidst the tears, she realized something important. The girl was calm. While the mother sobbed, the daughter made small sounds as if trying to answer. Her clear eyes watched her mother's face attentively. There was no fear there. There was no sadness, only presence. That child didn't know she was different. She didn't know the world would see her as impossible. She simply existed. It was on that day that the mother understood she needed to change the way she viewed life. If she treated her daughter as incomplete, the world would do the same. If she believed that the girl was capable, perhaps the world would one day learn as well. The years passed slowly. Each small achievement was celebrated as a miracle. When the girl learned to hold her head up better, there was a celebration. When she managed to turn over in bed on her own, her mother cried tears of joy. When she uttered words for the first time, the house was filled with hope. But not everything was rosy. Upon reaching school age, the first major shock of reality arrived. The nearest school refused enrollment. They said they lacked the necessary facilities. That they didn't know how to handle that type of child. That it would be better to look for a specialized place. The mother left the school with her daughter in her arms, feeling as if the world was closing doors before the girl even tried to enter. She tried other schools. She heard no many times. At one of them, a staff member said something she would never forget, that child will only hold the others back. That day, the mother returned home in silence. She sat on the sofa, placed her daughter beside her, and stared at the wall for long minutes. She thought about giving up. She thought about accepting that perhaps that world truly didn't have room for her daughter. But then the girl started laughing. A pure, loud, sincere laugh. A laugh that knew no rejection. The mother looked at her and understood that the problem was never her daughter. The problem was the world, which wasn't prepared to see beyond the obvious. After much persistence, she found a small simple school where a teacher decided to give it a try. She didn't promise miracles. She didn't promise it would be easy. She simply said, "Let's learn together." The first day of school was painful. The other children stared curiously. Some asked where her arms and legs were. Some laughed. Some were afraid. The girl felt for the first time that she was different. She went home quietly. She didn't want to talk much. Her mother felt her heart clench. That night, the girl asked something that cut deep. "Mom, am I wrong?" The mother knelt before her, gently cupped her face, and answered in a firm voice, even though her heart was breaking. "You are rare, and the world still doesn't know how to deal with rare things." From that day on, the girl began to build a silent strength. She learned to write, holding the pencil with her torso and mouth. She learned to paint. She learned to fend for herself in ways no one imagined. Each achievement was accompanied by looks of astonishment, some of admiration, others of disbelief. There were days when she came home crying. Days when she said she wanted to be like other children, days when she asked why God had made her this way. Her mother didn't have ready answers. She just hugged her, listened, and told her the truth. "Life isn't fair, but you are strong." The father gradually grew closer. He started helping with her studies, talking to her, laughing with her, feeling proud. One day, seeing her write on her own for the first time, he cried silently. He realized he had wasted too much time being afraid. In adolescence, the challenges changed in form, but not in intensity. Crueler stares appeared, comparisons, loneliness. While other girls talked about dating, clothes, and dances, she wondered if anyone would ever see beyond her disability. She felt invisible. But at the same time, something inside her was growing. A desire to prove that she existed, that she felt, that she loved, that she deserved to live fully. And it was precisely this desire that years later would bring her story to the world in a way that no one expected. The transition to adulthood arrived unannounced. While others planned college, work, independence, she wondered if any of those paths were truly open to someone like her. The world wasn't yet made for different bodies. The streets weren't accessible. The stairs remained heavy. Opportunities were scarce. Even so, she insisted. She finished school with double the effort. She studied more than everyone else. Not because she wanted to prove something, but because she knew that for her, making mistakes would cost her more. Every mistake would be used as proof that she wasn't capable. Every success was seen as an exception. While searching for a course, she heard the same phrases disguised as care again. "This can be very difficult for you. Have you thought about something simpler? Maybe staying home? Maybe accepting your limitations." But she wouldn't accept it. She began to write at first only for herself. She wrote about the pain she didn't say aloud, about the days when she felt like a burden, about the nights when she cried without anyone seeing. But she also wrote about her mother, about the strength she received from the first day, about the love that kept her alive when everything seemed impossible. One day, someone read one of those texts, then another, then someone else. Her words began to circulate. People who had never looked at someone with a disability in that way began to cry as they read what she felt. For the first time, she realized that her voice could reach places where her body could not. But life, as always, decided to test her resilience once again. The mother became ill. The same woman who had carried her in her arms against the judgment of the world was now weak, tired, dependent. Roles had reversed. The daughter, without arms and legs, began to care for her mother emotionally. She would sit beside the bed, talk, remember stories, make her mother laugh even amidst the pain. On one of those nights, the mother held her daughter's face and said something that would forever be etched in her memory. "You were the most difficult and most beautiful thing that ever happened in my life." A short time later, the mother left. The loss was devastating. The woman who had been her shield, her shelter, her strength was no longer there. For months, she felt she couldn't go on. She thought about giving up on everything. She thought that perhaps her mother had been the only reason she had fought so hard. But then she remembered the promise made that morning in 1979. "You will live in your own way, but you will live." And she decided to honor that. She continued writing. She started speaking at small events, then larger ones. She told her story without embellishment. She spoke of rejection, pain, and loneliness. She also spoke of the hidden beauty in difficult times. People cried. They hugged. They thanked her. They said they would never look at someone the same way again. She was no longer invisible. Years later, an interview changed everything. Someone asked what it was like to live without arms and legs. She answered calmly, "It's not my body that's difficult. What's difficult is living in a world that believes there's only one right way to be human." The news spread. Videos, texts, messages. People all over the world came to know the story of that girl born in 1979, considered impossible. Many vaguely remembered the news of the baby without arms and legs. Few imagined that she would be there, alive, lucid, sensitive, transforming pain into words. She never became famous for her status. She became someone who was needed. If you're listening to this story now and felt your heart tighten at any point, write in the comments. Write where you're watching from and say what touched you the most so far. Sometimes sharing a feeling helps someone who is silent on the other side of the screen, because stories like this aren't meant to be kept to oneself. They're meant to connect. And the most surprising part of this journey is yet to come. Over time, she learned something that few people manage to learn. That living is not just breathing. It's about persevering. It's about getting up every day even when your body aches. Even when your soul is weary. Even when the world insists on telling you that you don't belong. She began traveling to tell her story. In every city, in every auditorium, whether simple or large, there was someone crying in the audience. Mothers who felt guilty. People who thought about giving up. Young people who hated their own reflection in the mirror. And always after the talks, someone would approach and say the same thing. "If you could do it, maybe I can, too." She never said it was easy. She never sold the idea of overcoming adversity as something beautiful all the time. She spoke of loneliness, of anger, of envy for bodies that never had to think about how to hold a glass or open a door. But she also spoke of gratitude, of the love received, of the strength that is born when there is no other choice but to keep going. On one of those trips, a reporter asked the question she had been expecting for years. If you could choose, would you prefer to have been born differently? She took a deep breath. She thought of her mother. She thought of the difficult nights. She thought of everything she had lost and everything she had gained. Then she answered, "I wouldn't choose pain, but I also wouldn't erase who I've become because of it." Today, that baby from 1979 lives independently within the possibilities of her own body. She continues writing. She continues speaking. She continues touching lives. Not because she overcame her disability, but because she overcame the idea that she needed to be less to fit into the world. She is not a miracle. She is the result of love, persistence, and humanity. If you've made it this far, write the word "I stayed" in the comments. Also, tell us what city you're watching this story from. This helps the channel continue bringing you stories that truly touch you. And if this story moved you, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and watch the videos that are appearing on the end screen.